thanks for coming all. We're all three of us came from out of town, so Heather Bowden from Columbus's Bike Share and Kogo. John and I are from the Dayton Bike Share program. John works at the Greater Dayton RTA. I'm just kind of a volunteer member of our bike share team. So as we were kind of organizing ourselves, Columbus is up and running, and Dayton, we're still putting things together. So we said, well, let's kind of do this in order since we're at different points of the process. So we're going to start, talk a little bit how Dayton's bike share came to be. At this point, it's the initial funds are completely there, and it's planned to launch next spring, about 22 stations. So we're excited, and we'll talk a little bit how we got there and how we got there quickly. So I think probably the most impressive part about the Dayton Bike Share project is the speed of it and how quickly it came together and how smoothly. Just the way the process was led, really got the stakeholders on board carefully, made sure their questions were answered, and made that yes at the end of the day pretty easy. So I'm going to take the kind of the process that got us there, and then John's going to talk a little bit about the operational model for Dayton. And hopefully our PowerPoint works. All right, there we go. So we'll start with the graphic. In 2010, there were very few bike shares in the country. In 2011, a nice little jump. Another one in 2012, 2013, and then, well, skip here, 2014 here. So it's pretty exciting to see the momentum around bike share. I think it's kind of a rite of passage for up-and-coming cities at this point. You've got to have a bike share to say you've arrived. So we're excited to be joining the map here soon. So why bike sharing in Dayton, Ohio? Kind of want to hit on about 6 benefits that really hit home for the people in Dayton. One is connect the areas in and around downtown. As downtown's in its revitalization, how can we increase connectivity, have people discover new things more often? 2, increase street traffic, people on the road, people out and active, bring that sense of vibrancy to the city. 3, engage and attract young professionals. They're the early adopters. They're very supportive of the bike sharing concept. And then 4, improve connectivity and use of public transit. So how can you use bikes to get people more excited about using the bus? And how can you make the bus system better by having bikes to close those final gaps? 5, public health benefits, active people, an active culture of exercise and active transportation. And then 6, environmental benefits, getting fewer cars on the road, having people think about different ways to move around the city. And Heather's going to do a really good job explaining what bike share is exactly. So let me give I got to give a brief intro so we know what the heck we're talking about. Let's see if I can get back.
I think your map is pretty good.
Yeah, a good picture of all the stations up there. There we go. So bike sharing is, in a city, is a series of stations that each houses multiple bikes and has an automated system for checking out that bike. So the bikes are all locked into the station. These things have been designed and redesigned over kind of the last decade to be theft-proof, hack-proof, and so it works really well as the engineering has come a long way on how you can put a bike in, put a bike out. Anybody can do it. You just got to swipe your credit card and the bike unlocks. You pick your membership level and you're off. And so it's really meant to be about biking as a transportation option, not less frequently about the recreation element. It's more about being a convenient way to get to and from places rather than just riding for the fun of it. All right. So Dayton, Ohio. Is our own little Dayton, Ohio really ready for a bike share compared to all these cool cities like Austin and Portland and Seattle and Columbus? Are we there yet? The conversation around that started probably in 2010 or maybe even a few years earlier, where people started to say, hey, that's a pretty cool system. We're a pretty bike-friendly city. Why don't we have one yet? But no one was really ready to say, no one was confident enough to say, let's put our name on pushing that forward. Everybody's like, well, it's a great idea, it sounds cool, but we don't want to be the ones responsible if it doesn't work out or it goes wrong. So a group of individuals really noticed that energy that, hey, the community is really excited. Everybody's starting to see these in other cities. It'd be great if we had one, but what's the risk? Do we have enough people downtown to make the funding work, to make it look like a success and not bikes just sitting there unused all year? So that's a pretty tough question to get a straight answer and an easy answer on. So our nonprofit bike advocacy group kind of headed up a feasibility study of how can we take a neutral approach to how do we stack up against other cities, what are our local problems specific to us, and what are ideas for what this thing looks like if we're going to go do it. So there were two major elements of the study. A demand analysis that's kind of GIS based. So GIS is mapping using a computer to make cool maps, full of lots of data. I'm trying to catch the whole audience on where we're at on GIS. If you already know, then you know. But we want to, and the other half of that GIS study is examine the factors influencing Dayton's suitability for a bike share. Second major element of the study is kind of a public survey process. And these studies are really the precedent of any bike share. So Alta does it for every city they're going into. Cities often do them on their own. To really get a sense going into this, are we ready? Do we have what it takes? What do we need to worry about as we move into the process? So now we got to measure what are the factors we want to include in this feasibility study. And the benefit of going second or third or fourth or fifth is always somebody else has done this before. So our group looked at what are the factors around the country that indicate bike share success. So their inputs include who uses a bike share. So what the studies say is areas with high population density and or high job density, and areas with a lot of young people. Young people tend to be the first adopters. They're just more likely to be excited about moving around on a bike. Second area, how will the bike share be used? Are the streets bike friendly? Are there paths? Are there bike lanes? Can the everyday person navigate your city on a bike? Is your city flat enough? You know, people don't like riding uphill. So driving through Akron today, I said, all right, we're going to have to think through that one a little bit. There's some hills, but I don't think that's a deal breaker.
It's called Summit County.
And then the last, how are bike shares used as kind of the last mile of public transportation. So does your public transportation system line up well with bike share? Third area, what are the most likely bike trips? The Washington, D.C. bike share survey really pointed out restaurants and meals, shopping, going to and from work, tourist destinations, and then kind of parks and general recreation areas. So, having learned from all those studies that those are the factors that make bike share successful or unsuccessful, the team found geographic data that measures those things. So I'm not going to read this by any means, but so for population density, you can go to the census and you can calculate population density for any area. Similar with job density, this data is out there. and usually easily accessible. Food and accommodations, bike trails, public transit stops, that's all really easy for a city to grab from their county, the city, their regional planning organization. And so this group brings it together. And what that looks like is, for every 10 meter by 10 meter square, you come up with a 1 to 10 metric of population density, a 1 to 10 metric of job density, a 1 to 10 metric of how many restaurants are around, 1 to 10 on what the grade looks like. So then you get, for every 10 by 10 meter area in your whole region, you get a score for that square. So it's, for example, here's the population data. You drop that in, here's your score for every area based on population density. Here's your score on closeness to a public transit stop. When you add all those up, you get this heat map. So, and they're calling it bike demand. So the red areas are the highest demand. They scored the highest when you added up all those categories. The blue areas are the worst. You know, maybe it's open farmland, it's a levee on the river. Those are the areas that are going to come up blue because there's not people there, they're not close to transit stops, etc. So the benefit of this, and this is Montgomery County and Greene County, the center is Dayton, Ohio there. You get a map for, okay, where's bike share going to work in our region? And you really start narrowing what's the area we want to install a bike share system. Zooming in a little farther here, this is downtown Dayton, Ohio, and showing the borders of what has been imagined to be the borders of the bike share system. What's important here is everybody has an area this big. You know, downtown Dayton, Ohio is no bigger than downtown Akron. So what's exciting is you've just got to find that area that plays well. You don't have to have a great thriving region or a great thriving entire city. It's, do you have the area that a bike share works in? So what happened next in the study is they did the same thing for all the cities that have bike shares already. So up here you see Seattle on the left, lots of red, great urban environment, very dense. You have Columbus, again, lots of red, urban environment. So now we can put Dayton's picture up next to these. So I'm going to jump to, so here's Dayton next to San Antonio, right? So definitely less red than Seattle on Dayton, less red in San Antonio, but San Antonio's got a bike share that works. So we started to be able to find, all right, our map kind of looks like San Antonio's map. Our map kind of looks like Chattanooga's. So now we can go to those cities and say, okay, how many stations do they have? How much area are they covering? What's the operational model they're using? And we get a really data-driven way of saying, who are we like? What bike share can we compare ourselves to? So really the other half of that here, the bike community survey. So there's all the GIS work, really putting some data on what's the area that's going to work, how do we stack up against other cities' bike share areas. The other element here, bike share community survey, was just an effort to say, okay, where are our citizens at on this idea? The easiest summary is extremely supportive of the idea. This bottom chart shows, okay, are they more excited about a daily model or monthly model? So you can imagine what kind of data you can get from surveying citizens on the process. The other big piece that led to the bike share in Dayton going forward was at the University of Dayton, a bike sharing kind of pilot program almost. Campus Recreation Center had free bike rentals, only about 20 bikes, but within a year there were 3,000 checkouts. So you have this early indication of, okay, well, we know we've got a pretty good hub at the university. We've got another university, Sinclair Community College in the city, so hopefully they're play out similar. Really a real momentum builder for the process. I think, just to kind of look at the feasibility study holistically, is it became, we talked about those people who, this sounds good, but I'm not willing to put my name on it because I don't want to get in trouble if it goes wrong. Now they had the data to say, okay, we're right there with San Antonio, we're right there with Chattanooga. Now I'm willing to put my name out there. So through kind of one-on-one conversations with the area organizations, that buy-in started to come pretty easily. Who's going to argue with the 40-page report that says we're there? Nobody made a 40-page report that said otherwise. So it became quick. Some of the organizations involved: Regional Bike Advocacy Organization, Bike Miami Valley, Regional Planning Organization, Chamber of Commerce, the City Parks Organization, kind of the Downtown Vibrancy Organization called the Downtown Dayton Partnership, and the most exciting one, Greater Dayton RTA, the Regional Transit Authority. So they were the game changer. They said, we're in, we're going to support it, we're going to do the maintenance, we're going to be able to apply for the funding, and so that's when I get to invite John up to talk about how his organization has really been the game changer and really sped up the process of bringing a bike share program to our community. So, John.
Thanks, AJ. How's everybody doing? I'm really glad to be here today with you guys. As he said, I'm from the Greater Dayton Regional Transit Authority. On a good day, I'd be out on the side of the road somewhere trying to make sure a bus stop sign is not upside down, so it's real nice to be here with you folks this afternoon. My slide here. What I'd like to talk about in general is our operational model. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Can you believe it? We're in like our 4th generation of bike shares now. It's pretty exciting stuff. It's come a long way. The technology's made so many advances. So I'd just like to kind of talk a little bit about the operational models previously and kind of how we came to our mindset, the way we wanted to join our nonprofit partnership, and how we could pull off all of our resources to help this process really flow for us. In the beginning, you probably saw just single entities like governments. You had some universities, you had some nonprofits and for-profit groups that went out to try to do a venture on a bike share. Along the way, over time, you saw people start to get the idea that, wow, we really need to come together collectively in our community to form these types of partnerships to really put something behind our name and our bike share to get it moving forward. And along the way, somewhere along, you had these private organizations and a lot of times great quality vendors such as Alta, B-Cycle, that would actually handle the operation side while the public side was the owner. When we looked at it, we decided that we wanted to do it in a nonprofit format, along with our other partners, of course, the City of Dayton, Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, Five Rivers Metro Parks, the Downtown Dayton Partnership, Bike Miami Valley, and our other major stakeholders. What we really saw the capability of was really expanding our revenue stream in a huge way, having all these partners all work together. We all have, niches that we can work in. With our trolley lines and infrastructure, we have been tied to, federal grants are our bread and butter. I mean, that's something we've been doing for a long time, so that was a no-brainer for us. And our other partners have had better success in state funding along the way. And combined, we have a really good way to attack localities for other types of funding sources, in particular with sponsorships. And, with this type of big structure and the grassroots feel it has to it, because we're all part of our downtown area, it's going to really help us to really pull in, hopefully down the line, pull in some big donors. That's a big part of what we're looking towards. Just to talk about the model a little bit, what you expect when you have a bike share. You're going to have an operations side. You're going to have somebody who has the equipment, who's going to maintain the equipment. Also, you're going to have storage space for the equipment. You have the call center aspect of it. You have marketing and outreach. You're going to have some educational outreach. It's very important because you're going to have a lot of new people, hopefully, that are going to be riding a bike on a street for the first time in a downtown area. And so there's a lot of education for safety that's important. And on the same opposite side of that same coin, you're going to have a lot of motorists who are going to have to understand what it means to have people on the street with you sharing that road and the rules and regulations that go along with that. Along with the cultural aspect, we realize that we're going to have to dig down really deep as far as educating people in our area into the bike share culture. That's a really important part of it. And one way we can break that down, we would have RTA go ahead and handle the nuts and bolts of things. We're going to take on the equipment, do all the maintenance. We also can do call center support, also any type of grant application that we did for the federal grant for our startup money. We took care of that. The city of Dayton was really amazing. They paid the match money, $250,000 of our grant. And on the admin side, the nonprofit side, they can, while we're doing this, they can handle the marketing, the outreach, all the public information, all the fair structuring, and that's a really important piece of the whole puzzle. Downtown Dayton Partnership, giving us support for the actual research, such as some of the GIS stuff we've seen here. Is very important once you get it up and running that you look at your data in an aggregate way and look at that and make sure that you're moving forward in the right direction, see what people are doing with their bikes, how they're moving, so you can make adjustments along the way. Also, the VRPC, really key important part of it is just getting office space, IT support, materials, desks, offices, because we're going to create some jobs, and so we need that infrastructure in place, and when we all come together, we can move forward rather smoothly. If you can see on this slide, we are going to create some positions for the general and administrative side. Looking through our feasibility study, we were projecting about 4.5 hours per station per week. Of course, we said we're going to have 22 stations, so we see it's important to create 3 full-time positions, which includes an executive director, business development, and programming coordinator as well. And on the other side of operations, we're looking at probably 2.5 hours per week per station. And for that, we're looking at 2 part-time employees. You'll have someone who's going to actually man the phone and have the system in front of them so they can keep their eye on what's going on with fares, any overage fees, any types of issues. Anyone who calls in has an issue. Someone out on the street operationally who can take a look at the stations, see if anything unusual is happening, if there are bikes that need to come in for repair, or other bikes that need to go out to repair, or they can coordinate the shifting of bikes, so the redistribution as well. And as far as the funding for that, you can get resources from that, from grants, of course. Also, there are other options in the way of sponsorships, as I said before, donations. You're going to have your yearly memberships, and also you're going to have other fees that are associated with the bike share. There we go. So you're asking yourself, well, why would a transportation agency be an integral part of this piece of the puzzle? And I'm just going to explain that kind of briefly. To us, it was kind of a no-brainer. The bike share literally falls right on top of our transportation system that we have in downtown Dayton. We have over 3,400 bus stops that we deal with in the Montgomery and Greene County areas. And so you can go on the bus. Once you get off the bus, you're going to be able to jump right onto a bike and take it to your next destination, or vice versa. You can get right on the bike at the next station where you lock it in, get right on the bus if you need to go somewhere else. So it's a really logical way for us to be involved, and we can really absorb that very easily. Another part of that is that we have a 650 staff company, and we have multiple locations. We have 2, our admin office and our operations offices are right in downtown. So we're right there, we're on the street, and we have a really good, excellent maintenance program, and we have mechanics on demand that are expert mechanics that work with our trolley infrastructure, our diesels, our bus stops infrastructure. We can do a lot of things. We can install our own stations. We can do a lot of maintenance. It'll be easy for us to absorb that. And also, we are the eyes and ears on the street in Dayton. In general, we have a staff of over 20 plus road supervisors that are there from the morning till the late evening. So we have people in the streets 24 hours a day, almost 7 days a week, and they are equipped with the supervisor vans, so we can easily convert those to where they can easily go ahead and redistribute the bikes. And we have a communication system in every bus and every van. Everyone has a radio, so we can easily call in, tell them what bike needs to go where. So that's easy for us to absorb. And another thing that we already have in place, we do have a call center already that deals with our public customers, telling them how to get to a bus stop, which bus they need to take, transfers, etc. So we can get any kind of overage support if we get any misdirected calls, anything that we need to do. We already have that staff in place to help along the way. And more importantly, we can take on all the liability because whoever's going to operate has to take on the insurance. So it's really easy for us to do that because we have a long-standing financial history and insurance history, and we have a very excellent safety department, and we've received lots of awards for that. And so it's really a logical choice to have us take on the insurance, and that we don't even have to have anyone as a second. Just a little note, not every insurance company can handle a venture as big as a bike share. I'm not going to promote anyone, but you can easily Google online and you can find sports-related insurance companies that actually deal with bike shares. It's pretty common. If you look at this particular slide, you can see how we have our upfront capital money that was done through a Surface Transportation Program grant, which has a lot of flexibility in it. It can be used for pedestrian and bike improvements. And so the city of Dayton was great enough to make the $250,000 match for us. And when you look at the numbers here, you can see we're projecting over the first 5 years that we're going to need a little bit of over $400,000 per year as our operational costs. And you can see the really unique thing about bike shares and that there's actual legitimate fare box return. In public transit, if we were in the middle of this chart, we would be flabbergasted. We would be like, wow, we've really found something. We tend to be towards the bottom edge. But you can see here, it up to 81% in projections. That might be high. It's hard to say now, but if you look at places like Capitol in DC, I think I read they were running at 98% fare box return. 100%. So they're profitable. They're running profitable. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a long way from our market to get to that point, but you can see the potential. And so it's a no-brainer for us to be a part of the bike share as well to help out our bottom line. Another way that we can look at the funding sources to help along the way, look at your downtown area. You likely have some world-class universities like we do in Dayton. We have the University of Dayton, we have Sinclair, great universities. And also you probably have some really major healthcare companies downtown. If you could tie that in, go out and try to get some founding sponsors. That's a really great way to start. That's part of our plan as far as when we start to do the site locations. First thing we want to do is lock down our major founding sponsors. Let them have the opportunity to basically pay for the actual station and possibly the bikes, and then you have all kinds of opportunities. As you can see on the slide, on the bike you have little vendors and things. You can put their decals, you can brand the station to whatever logo or whatever information that they want to put on there. So that's a really important, good way to find some revenue. And we also have a couple different smaller corridors. Has anyone ever been to Dayton here? Awesome, thank you. Come back. We have Brown Street, and of course I'm sure you're familiar with the Oregon District. Down that way you got a lot of small businesses. There's a lot of opportunities to get some smaller businesses down there to pull together to pay for a station, put their logos, information on the station. And another little revenue stream that we were trying to go after is any large employment pools we have. Go and offer them a subsidized fare. It's just like what we do with our own bus fares. We go to companies, we offer and universities and offer them opportunities to purchase bulk. You do the same thing with a bike share. You say, have your company come, whoever's interested, to get a year membership, we'll give you a discount. We'll subsidize that for you. So it's a really good revenue source at that point. Here is a little look at our timeline. We have an aggressive timeline, and a lot of help in that was that we got our capital funding pretty quickly. We are just about finished with our procurement process. We'll probably know in the next week or so who our vendor's going to be. So we are working aggressively on the site locations. Stress that. Work really aggressively because you're going to deal with a lot of more private property than you think. Even you don't imagine it when you start, but when you really go and you look, these bike stations have anywhere from 11 to 19 bikes. That's anywhere from 40 to 52 feet in length, and you need a 4-foot backing radius. You have to be ADA compliant. You know, there's all those issues. So you're going to have a lot of private property owners that you're going to have to deal with and work with, get the right permits through the city. City of Dayton will help us do that. So it's real important that you jump on that. We're having an aggressive timeline, even more aggressive than what's on this page. I'd like to have it locked down by September. That's my hope. And so with this amazing partners that we have, the other part of that is while we're doing all that, our partners are going to be working revenue sources, sponsors, founding sponsors, going out and doing all those things. And then a real key component before you start up at the very end of the timeline is public outreach and marketing. That's a huge piece. How many of you here have ever ridden on a bike share before? Okay, so we have a few people. Did you understand? Was it in Columbus? Did you read the disclaimer and understand how the fair thing worked right off the bat? No. See, that's part of the educational piece that I'll get to in a second. What I'm going to talk about real quick right now is actually a few things in the procurement process, the nuts and bolts that go into when you're approaching your vendor. Some lessons that we've learned from other people. One of the challenges that we're going to be as an operator and the maintainer of it is we're going to need parts and pieces. The bikes have lots of parts and pieces. There's going to be things that wear out quicker than you expect. There's common ones like a lot of the grips on the handlebars, things like that. And you need to be real specific in your contract with your vendor that you expect delivery times, deliverables to be in a certain time frame, or you have consequences. So I recommend that you be really diligent in making that evident to the vendor. Also, you need any service visits because they don't live in your neighborhood necessarily. They're always covering their service area, so you need to be real specific about any type of service issues. Real quick, I'm going to talk about the GPS types on the bikes. From what I've seen, you have 3 options. Your bike comes with an RFID that tells you this is this unique bike. And when you have an RFID, all you can see is bike A left station 1 at this time and arrived at station 2 at this time. You have nothing in between. So that's not going to really be a good thing for your GIS people because they're going to want to see the aggregate data so they can know where people are going, what's really happening on the street, so they can logically think, where can we expand? Are these stations in the right place? So I recommend having a GPS feature. It does cost extra per bike to get a GPS installed. You have 2 options. One's a little cost prohibitive. If you have an active live GPS, you can see the bike as it moves everywhere it goes. You see it live on your system, so you know exactly where it's going and how it got there. Unfortunately, it's tied into your local Verizon or AT&T network, and there's monthly charges for that. And I think that we estimated it at around $60,000 per year, so that's a little cost prohibitive for us. We went with is a passive GPS. So you do have the GPS component that you have to pay for on the bike, but there's no fees associated with it. And what it does is it leaves a breadcrumb trail. You'll see the bike leave the station, you'll get a blip, 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 next station. So you have a fuller aggregate piece of data that you can look at, so you can use that to look at how you want to change your stations. Also, get ready to build bikes. When you get your bikes in, from what I've seen and heard, they're not completely assembled. we're gonna have 202 bikes show up, bam. So we're gonna need to do some building. I stress in your procurement that you consider asking the vendor to, you do two things. You could have them build them all for you, which they'll be built perfectly and properly, correctly. That's gonna probably be cost prohibitive to you. I would recommend actually having them be there when they've delivered and have them help you to advise people to build them. You can do a building party. I'd say I'd recommend have your local bike people come in who already have the expertise, because you want good oversight on this so the bicycles are put together properly. And also make room. Your bikes, from seeing other people's bike shares, they tend to get all their bikes built and in place before all the stations are. So be prepared to have some extra space to store them until you can get them actually out and racked. One last thing, a couple things. Yeah, just real quickly on fare structure, because we were talking about the understanding there. Most people think they have an annual membership, they can use the bike whenever they want, how often they want. Unfortunately, that's not the case. With a bike share, you get the bike in 30-minute increments. You have to lock it back up after 30 minutes, or you're going to get an overage fee. So that's why I go back to saying the educational part of that's very important to let people understand how that works. Another thing we're going to do is be proactive. We're going to have call center people ready over the first 4 months. We're going to basically look through the software and see every overage fee we get. We're going to track them. We're going to give that person a call and explain it to them and make sure that they understood that they were going to get a fee and why they had it. And for the first 4 months, we're going to refund those who didn't understand it on a sliding, diminishing scale. That way, we're being proactive and being customer friendly. We really don't want to scare anyone away from the bike share. So there's that learning curve. And yourselves, don't be afraid of the overage fees. I mean, it's an important part of your revenue base. That's why the fare box returns are where they're at. I mean, it's an important component of it. If people are willing to pay it, you should let them pay it. One last component I want to talk about. At RTA, we work with our general public, and a lot of people that use our services are from a lot of our lower income populations in the area. And so it's important that that same type of accessibility be equal with the bike share, because there's an issue. Some people are underbanked, just to say they don't have a bank account, they don't have a credit card, so that makes it really difficult for them to be able to use the bike share. That's really a barrier. And it's important to us that we have some stations that are in the lower income neighborhoods that are accessible for everyone, just like we do with our bus stops. We have to make sure that we're equitable, we have an equal amount of access and amenities throughout our whole entire system. Just quick, you can see a few places like Boston. They partnered with their public health and their medical centers. They subsidize fares. I mean, a $5 annual fare and a free bike hat. It's amazing. They lax their overage fees as well. And you can get grants to do some research and do some outreach. You can see in Minneapolis, they actually went out door to door and scouted for members and from communities to join the bike share, and then encourage others in their communities to also join in. Because if you look at the numbers, lower income and minority usage is a smaller percentage, and so that's something we really need to concentrate on and focus on to make sure that we're as equitable as possible. In Washington, D.C., they also did a venture with a credit union where they relaxed their rules a little bit. If you got an account, you got a discount on the rate that way. And that's my part of my time. I appreciate your attention, and we'll hand it over to Heather.
It is so great to be here with you guys today, and it's so great to be with Dayton as well, because I think it's really exciting for us here in Ohio. We're really starting to see the needle move, in several different communities, different sizes, different shapes, different makeups, and people are starting to realize this and recognize that there are other ways to get around town. And there's different ways to promote it, there's different ways to do it, Every community is going to be different, but there are some really good core commonalities that are emerging from this Ohio initiative, and I think we all can learn from each other. And so, thanks for being here. And so, what I want to talk about is Columbus and the Go-Go Bike Share program that launched July 30th of last year, and yeah, we talked about generally what is bike share, so I'm not going to really go into that. But so we launched in end of July of last year. The RFP went out from the city in November for an operator. Alta Bicycle Share responded. It's a 5-year O&M contract, which also includes marketing, seeking sponsorship funds, and ad revenue as well. And it's been amazing because we got the notice to proceed in February when we were selected. I was hired in April. We did all the site planning, all the permitting, all the station and bike assembly between April and the end of July, and we were on the ground and running. Anybody in the government world knows that this is amazing. Alta Bicycle Share is the company that I work with, and we actually run all of the systems in Melbourne, Australia, DC, Boston, New York, Chattanooga, Chicago, San Francisco, Toronto. We're launching Seattle in a few months, and then we've got 5 to 7 contracts going that future bike share programs will be up and launching. So I think that's getting back to what AJ said earlier. Bike share in the US is taking off leaps and bounds, and people are finding ways to do it, different creative ways. Yeah, so what is KOGO? I kind of went over the timeline of how we got to where we are and launched, but this was a huge initiative by Mayor Coleman himself. For those of you who know, his nickname is Biking Mike Coleman. And so he's always been a really strong bike advocate and supporter. Nan Derby, city council member with Dayton, she was the political advocate. And just an aside, you got to have that cheerleader on the political side of things if you want to move it forward. But Mayor Coleman, huge advocate, and it came out as a priority from the Green Team, Green Spot initiative out of the mayor's office. And so what's really interesting here, that's very different from the model that Dayton is proposing, is they launched with all capital budget funds. And so that's a really rare thing across the bike share system, because it's usually CMAQ or STP or some sort of attributable funding to get the launch and seed money going. What's really interesting also is there are other systems that have solely launched on private sponsorship dollars. City Bike, for example, in New York City, Citibank donated $41 million for 5 years to basically pay and get that system launched. So for the city of Columbus to be able to commit the $2.1 million, it cost to buy the equipment, and then they paid for our first year of operations, is a great testament to how committed they really were and are. So we've got 300 stations, 300 bikes and 30 stations. Okay, and so I do know the largest bike share program in the world. We always do trivia when we're out at tabling events and festivals and whatnot. The largest bike share program in the world is in China. And there's an awesome YouTube video, if you YouTube Google it or whatever, and pull it up, just to see the amount of people and the craziness of the system. But anyway, so here's our station map. We've got 30 stations, and if I knew how to use this computer, I would click on one of the bubbles. Because what's really cool about our program is it shows you how many bikes are available and or docking points are available at any one station in real-time information. Oh, thank you. So that's one really cool thing that our software provides to us on the back end, and then we're able to share to the public. Cool, thank you. Back to the, yes.
Does it have an app? Do you have an app too that does that?
We have an app for that, yeah. Spot Cycle or Cycle Finder, actually, yeah. But so what we've decided, City of Columbus decided, and most of the cities do this, they'll look at the budget forecasting and you know, what we deem we can make with revenue, and we go over the numbers before we launch it and figure out what would be a fair thing to charge our annual members. Of course, take that out to the public, see what they think about it. And we all settled on a $75 annual membership fee and a $6 day pass. So we always like to tell people, $75 annual membership fee equals up to 20 cents a day. So I mean, if you end up using this thing, you know, 2 or 3 times a month, it's paid for itself. So it's a really affordable and attractive option to a lot of folks. And so, yeah, for those of you that are familiar with Columbus, we don't venture very far west of downtown. We have a station at COSI, the Science Institute Center, whatever it's called. To the east, we're in a sort of up-and-coming neighborhood called Old Town East. And then to the north, we're in Short North at 2nd and High near the North Star and White Castle, for those of you who know where that is. And then to the south, we head down to Audubon Park, Schiller Park, and then we go up to Children's Hospital. So that's kind of the southern boundary as well. And we settled on that based on the feasibility study that we did from our proposal and combined information with a nonprofit advocacy group called Consider Biking. They put together a feasibility study a few years back. So, you know, all of that combined kind of gave us where we wanted to start with initially. Yep, Spot Cycle app will help you find your way. What's really cool about the app too is back to the 30-minute ride not limitation, but 30-minute ride rule. You can set 30-minute timer on your app. So when you're riding around, it'll send you oh no, we only have 5 minutes, get over to a station and dock. And so, you know, we like to tell people, you can go over to the station, dock, and then just take it right back out, and then your time starts again. So for the smart ones around Columbus, they have figured this out and used it to their advantage. Yeah, so the Kogo name was branded by the City of Columbus. They came up with the logo. The stations themselves and the bikes are provided by a supplier called PBSC that we have a supplier operator type arrangement with, and they are based out of Montreal. We also have systems that run from a company called 8D. I actually don't know where they're from, but we have other systems that run, you know, using that software as well, and they're very similar. Just depends on which system the city wants to go with. And we've gone over this, you know, AJ did a great job of talking about what makes a good bike share. But pretty much when I ran the numbers one day when this new metric came out from the Transportation Development Policy Institute, you know, we basically found that we have enough density, we have enough population, but we could stand to put more stations in. So just a fun little planning thing to share. And John actually touched on this too. For our stations, we always like to tell folks we're looking for at least a 40-foot wide by 6-foot deep footprint to place the stations. And the 6 foot for us is so that you can add a couple extra feet for the back tire. We do make sure that we're 4-foot ADA compliant wherever we place them. And we actually try and aim for stations that are within the existing right-of-way. As you go through the planning process, you'll realize your gut is telling you, man, like, okay, North Market, for those of you that know where the North Market is downtown, wonderful institution, like, everybody loves it, everybody goes there, it's a wonderful destination spot. And we originally had the station like kind of tucked around the corner, you know, not right at the front door. And it was perfect timing because like the new executive director that had just started working at the North Market was from a big city that already had bike share, and he came in and he's like, no, I want it right at the front door. And we're like, oh, thank you. So it made it very easy from a planning perspective to get that one done, but it's not always that easy. And we do like to stick in the right of way, but sometimes, you know, it does make sense to try and get as close to that front door as you can. And then the way that it works with us is we enter into a license agreement with that private property owner. We've got 5 of them within our 30 station area that basically says, you know, it's okay for us to come on to your property and maintain the stations and do what we need to do, and we're not going to sue you and you won't sue us, basically, you know, the fun legal things. But it's worked out really well at the 5 areas where we do have that agreement. The cool thing about our stations, they do not come assembled, so you do need a large area to put them all together. But what's really cool is they go down in a quick minute in my world, because we basically assemble them in-house. You don't bolt anything down to the ground. They can withstand hurricane winds, i.e. Sandy in New York City. And then they're Wi-Fi and run on solar. So there's no electrical that you have to hook up to. And so the guys, I don't know if it's, oh boy. Well, there's a great video of the guys installing the stations, and all we do is we load them on flatbed trucks, we rent a crane, they come by, plop them down, and it's incredibly fast and awesome to watch. Go to our Facebook page, you can watch that. How do I get to go? Stuck.
There you go.
I'm not having luck with this today. Oh, there's a video. We'll see if it works. So the other thing to think about too, the wonderful thing at the City of Columbus is that everybody in the different departments worked really well together, and we were able to just get 1 permit for all of the station installs, which was huge. Can you guys see that? It's kind of small, but. Oh, and that is at North Market. And there's some fancy little music in the background. But yeah, as you can see, like they come in 10-foot plates, and so we assemble everything from the plate up, and then smush them together once they're out in the field, and run all the electrical under it and get it up and running. But it really is that easy.
You mentioned New York a couple of times. I read an article about how you were having an issue about all bikes were moving out of their location and then hiring people to pick up trucks that were moving back and forth. That issue?
Well, yeah, that's what we get paid to do.
They're doing it to the extent that
They couldn't even keep up because the program was so popular. Yeah, and they have beefed up their operations to make sure, we call it rebalancing. I think you call it redistribution. Same concept. And with Columbus, we're finding, because it's flat, the bikes are basically rebalancing themselves a lot. Our highest used area, oh, I have a slide for this later, but whatever. Yeah, our highest travel times are basically from 10 to 2, Monday through Friday, and then like 4:30 to 10 during the week. And then on the weekends, it's just nuts. And so on the weekends is where we're finding a lot of time that has to be devoted to the rebalancing.
all under contract, they have to come through.
Yeah, yeah. And each contract, whenever you set that up, I was just talking to somebody about this. Whenever you set up your contract, think about what you want those service level agreements to be. And think about, how you want to promote it. Because some of the cities actually fine if you break one of those service levels, but then it actually becomes a deterrent to the ability to make revenue. So you just kind of have to juggle what the priorities of the city are. We've got a really cool website. Yeah, I'll jump to public input now because, right, it's all about the site planning and figuring out where they go. But then you've got to go out to the public and really talk to them and make sure you've got the support to back you up once those stations go in. And so we've actually just posted about a month ago areas that people could go in now and suggest where they want us to expand to. And prior to launching, we did the same exercise, and we did take that data from the public and compared it to the heat mapping and the feasibility study results. And if it made sense, we would adjust. We did talk a lot about this. Things of note that we've learned during that planning process is, are you ready to take that time to figure out if you want to be on private property or in the right of way, because that will take extra time, extra negotiations to talk to people. You want to think about your geography, where you think people would be going and coming to, and how the geography might deter certain travel routes and patterns. I can tell you in DC, like everything getting into the city is downhill. So everybody rides to work on bike share, but then they take the metro home. And so all the rebalancers basically have to go out 3 times in the morning during peak hour and sit at the stations, wait for the first wave to come in, run them all back up, and do it 2 or 3 times in the morning because there's such a demand for it going this way. But then afternoon rebalancing isn't that huge of a deal. So it's really kind of funny. Luckily, wonderful Columbus is really flat. Public involvement, some of the things we learned. I did talk about, talking with the private property owners. It was huge. We met with every neighborhood area commission that our stations were in and got everybody's buy-off and understanding of what the program was, how it would look aesthetically in their neighborhood, where they wanted to see it, et cetera, et cetera. And there were some that didn't get it and were a little bit apprehensive. I say that nicely. And there was one spot where we were we dug our heels in because we were we know it is going to be successful. And the city actually agreed to take a meter out to put it within the road. We've only got 3 stations that are in the road themselves. They're mostly on the face of curb on the sidewalk. But we knew it was going to be huge. And of course it ended up being our number 2 highest ridden station in the system. And now every business owner around it loves it, So it takes some time. But actually the Columbus Bike Plan had a survey that just went out. There were 2,299 respondents, which in a public plan survey was, oh, so. But one of the questions was, do you think bike share is good for Columbus? And the results were a resounding 82%. So the public really has embraced it. They just, they took a little time for education. Education is key. The fun thing regarding education is, in the beginning we had folks that would walk by the stations and we called it the spaceship look because they would look at the thing like it literally was a spaceship and it's like, what is that thing? And so we're noticing as we're going out in this new festival season of summer that people are like, oh, Kobo, I've heard of that. So it's changing. People are recognizing what it is. And a lot of them are like, oh yeah, I tried that the other week with my, with my girlfriend, whatever. So it's starting to glom on, but it takes a while. So we've been really lucky that the city has paid for our first year of operations to help offset that educational time. Phyllis?
So what was your biggest challenge with getting the bike share Columbus going? Was it the administrative side or technical?
Supply chain, I think, because for those of you who know Brad Westall from the city of Columbus, he's my project manager. He's a powerhouse. He's one of those guys that gets things done. And so we couldn't have, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't him. So I mean, that was huge. But it did take, it was exactly like you guys were talking about, you've got to place your orders 6 months at least in advance to get stuff in. So yeah, my biggest thing was I was trying not to freak out because the bikes were not there by July 1st, and I'm like, okay, we can get this done. But that really was the biggest challenge. But it really has been embraced in the city. We do a lot of marketing. I won't bore you with all of that. Check out our Facebook. We do all the social media. Demographics, real quick. We can hold the questions till the end, I think. Demographics, real quick. Exactly what you guys were talking about. It's the 20 to 40-year-olds. It was really interesting because when we first started up, it was a little bit older, and then now it's starting to skew to that typical age range. As with everything in biking in this world, yeah, most of our annual members are male. And then what's really interesting is most of our members are, as you would typically expect, in the zip codes where the footprint of our project is. But I just pulled these numbers a few months ago. Our day pass users, the highest users of our day pass users are actually from the same zip code. So they're trying it out still, and our job is to make sure we turn them into annual members. Some quick facts. I bet, I gotta check the data, but I bet we're up to 1,000 members because we were at 998 yesterday. We've had that's actually up to over 12,000 subscribers, and that includes, the day pass users and the annual members. We've saved over 4 million calories and 72,000 pounds of CO2 emissions. But the really cool thing, and this is outdated, because this is only until May 9th, but we're up to 120,000 miles ridden, which that blows me away. I'm really excited about that. Okay, questions now.
Obviously, you have the stations aren't all the same size, and some of them probably are higher than that. But do you always just leave like so many empty docks per station?
Yeah, we do like a 50-50 ratio. That's what most systems do around the country. Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with the stations in the short north when you've got the Arnold there and the festivals and everything else like that?
Mm-hmm. We actually have started doing this summer. We did it for Arts Festival, the beginning of June. We do corrals. And so we'll have a couple of volunteers come out and we'll rope off an area. And so as people are all coming down, they'll dock the bike and then we'll take them out and kind of like move them off to the side. And then we'll call our station, or we'll call our rebalancer, and he'll come in the van and, you know, haul them off and get them back to where they need to be. But yeah, we call it corralling. Oh, actually, no, we're changing the name to valet because it sounds fancier. That's my marketing person right there.
You said that you had your first year's operational funds in. What are you doing for the second year? How much
We have a very exciting announcement coming on July 11th on our 1-year birthday celebration. That's all I can say. So I guess you guys are all going to have to come down to Bicentennial Park and find out what the mayor is going to tell you. But, you know, under our contract, we were responsible for going after sponsorship and ad space on our station kiosks. I don't know how to work this thing, but basically we have we called it a map frame, and on one side is where our station map, paper copy of our station map is, and then on the other side is the potential for advertising. And we've been actually pretty successful because we sub-consulted with an out-of-home advertising firm in Columbus called Orange Barrel Media. And so they go out and sell ad space for us and pull in sponsors for us. So we've got 20 of our ad spaces sold already.
business people have a projection of where they're going to be in 5 years? Do you have any kind of projection as to where your revenues will be versus operating costs?
I do, but I can't tell you that. You'd have to ask the city of Columbus. I know. It is quite favorable.
We already have a lot of partners online, but a lot of that is just projecting. You know, and we'll have to roll with punches, but working on sponsorships and donors, that's going to be a key.
And most of that's coming from sponsorships and donors and not out of the fairs.
Well, at the start, yeah, it's going to take a while for the memberships to build. So
Right.
that's why we're
Do you
projecting.
think at some point we'll actually be able to make enough to cover operating costs out of fairs alone?
We did it in DC.
We hope so. We're not the same market as DC, but we don't need to. We're running as a nonprofit already.
Yeah.
And, you know, look at Dayton RTA, we don't run on a profit, we've been,
You've got tax revenues.
yeah, exactly.
Well, that means if you're not-for-profit, you gotta go out and solicit funds.
Right. Yeah. But we
Yeah,
have a
and
lot
the
of,
nice thing about being nonprofit is those folks that will want to get you, they can write off on their taxes.
we have a lot of good features downtown, we have
That's
Dayton
very important.
Dragons,
Think
we got a
about
lot of
that.
options, a lot of big businesses, a lot of big donors in the area. And it's something that, since we have such a vast array of people working on it together, I think we can really do a good job of it. We have a lot of, we're so grassroots based, everyone in our group has an interest in our downtown area because we had a lot of people leave the area over the recession, and we finally got to a point where we're flattening out, where we're not really losing, not really gaining. So this is really important for us. It's a real key element, pulling people who want to live the urban lifestyle. So it's a real focus with everyone who is in around town Dayton. So I think we'll be really successful.
And I think too, we're the Columbus guinea pigs, right? So I think you can use us as a model to say it's working and, they are fiscally sustainable and this is how they did it. And I think that's going to go a lot further than being able to say, oh, New York was able to get it for you.
But you're basically, are you a nonprofit too?
No, we're actually a for-profit entity. And per our contract, which, we
Also,
don't,
is that
also, yeah.
What about Coco? Is that a nonprofit?
Coco's just a name. No, it's just a branding identity. And the way that it's working in our contract with the city of Columbus is I should say when we get to that point where we're making revenue, we have an agreement with the city that it's a 50-50 profit split. So anything, that we make, we get to take. But actually what's cool about Columbus is that they've set up an exclusive fund for that, and anything that they're getting, goes straight towards expansion.
Just another point on that, at RTA, we already do a lot of advertising on our buses. We find that people really like to see their logos and their messaging. We really believe that will transfer over to bike share stations and bikes themselves as well. So we think that'll be really successful.
assuming these, or maybe I shouldn't assume, but are these stations portable at all? I mean, are they movable at a moment's notice? In other words, if there's 500 people convention in front of the Hyatt, you can put a station right in front?
Yep, and actually, that's a good point, because if I could have done, but if I could have done anything differently, I would have had a couple of extra in our warehouse exactly for events like that.
And what about helmets? I didn't hear helmets mentioned at all. Maybe I missed it.
No, helmets are not required
Not
for
really?
City of Columbus code unless you're 14
Because
and under.
there's no helmet bike law in Ohio, so does that pertain?
No, no. I used to be the ODOT biking tech coordinator, so I can tell you, yeah, you don't have to wear a helmet when you bike. Yeah.
One other thing.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever consider with the annual pass, it's unlimited miles within a half-hour time frame, and then at 29 minutes you give it back and you start over. Did you ever think about charging an extra $1 a day in addition to the annual pass, or even 50 cents? Just think about the thousands of people who wouldn't, 50 cents buys nothing today. So if they had 2 quarters to put in a machine, you got the 50 cents additional in addition to the annual pass, so that it wouldn't, it's not affecting anybody's real economy, at least in my opinion, to generate more revenue, especially if you're for profit.
Well, the way that we're running it is, well, number one, we don't want to get into the business of handling money, so we only do credit card. And then number two, and in Paris, they do.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you. Paris, they have.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to get into the business of the money, so it's a lot easier to do with the credit card. But then, the other thing that we do is we charge $3 for every half hour they go over. Yeah, and in different cities, set it up differently. Some will have the half hour be less expensive, some have it more. But we're finding it's a lot easier message to the public just to keep it, the straight line, $3 for every half hour. And the other thing we're finding too is that if you're a day pass user, and especially if you're out of town, they don't mind paying that extra $3. It's not, they're on vacation anyway, so they're expecting to spend money. And quite frankly, we make a lot of our revenue off of that first half an hour. So it's been working out really well for us. Versus the other cities that, I can't remember if it's Minneapolis or another like-sized city where they only do $1.50 for that first hour, and then first half hour, and then it goes up after that.
I have my own question. Have you seen anyone that has considered or looked into doing actual usage charges just per trip?
Wow. No, I haven't. But I think as bike share systems are so new, right? DC is 4 years in, and that's the oldest one in the U.S. So we're continually going to end up tweaking this so that it actually ends up best for everybody. And so we've actually been having discussions at the corporate level of how do we start thinking about that structure, for the most revenue without offending the most customers. They just launched Columbus Car-to-Go last November, and they do a completely different thing where they charge by the minute. So is that something to consider? All of this stuff I think is still on the table for discussion and negotiation. And from the national perspective level, NACTO actually brought in all of the project managers on the municipal and the county levels that are running the programs, and they're also really starting to have those discussions now. And so, like I said, in a year or two, I think we're going to see some different ideas emerging. And as the technology changes, it changes at warp speed. So that'll also provide us other options. Yes.
How did you do this past winter?
Not so well.
Do you
It was a polar vortex, for God's sake.
Did you pull most of them off?
No, we didn't. And most of the cities, because we launched New York and Chicago and us, and then San Francisco last year. And we all stayed open. And New York and Chicago both did wonderfully, even despite the polar vortex. Ridership did go down. but I think, I think our climate is a little bit more southern. I don't know what the snowfall accumulation difference is between here and there, but, yeah. Well, and I do know from a garden reasoning perspective, I can plant different flowers than you can. So, I think, if we have winters that we normally have, we're gonna start to see those numbers increase. We did see the diehard folks, like, point A to point B every day, to go to and from work in the snow.
Did you pull any bikes in though?
We did not pull any bikes in. The only system that I know that does is Minneapolis and Cambridge. No, sorry, Boston. But Cambridge did a pilot where they stayed out over the winter. So they're actually in Boston talking about everybody staying out.
And then, with your marketing, with all of the hotels downtown, the convention center, did you incorporate anything into their materials?
Oh,
Did they do all of their?
Yeah, we're a member of Experience Columbus.
Okay.
They've been fantastic partners. They hand out materials. Our downtown SID hands out materials to new businesses and new residents that come, that come to the downtown. We have a ton of hotel partnerships where, we went out and we go out and do educational talks to all of the hotels all the time, the concierges, give everybody day passes so they can go out and try and the system, know how to talk to the guests about how to use it. And that's interesting too, because I'm starting to see this summer, a lot of our stations by the hotels have higher use. So that's been really cool to see that our work is paying off.
Yeah, I see you stop at Short North. Any reason why you didn't go to the university? Because you have 50,000 students.
If I had a nickel for every time I went I would have been mine to the university by now. We're getting there. Yeah. Be on the lookout. We'll get there eventually. We are planning, we just applied for CMAC. Well, City of Columbus applied for the CMAC fund. But we hope to expand in all parts of directions.
Do any of the bicycles have cargo carriers on them for people want to go shopping or for their own briefcase and stuff?
I know. People every once in a while will ask that, but not enough to where I think it would warrant the maintenance and having to take care of all of that.
For our system, we're going to actually have a front basket.
Yeah.
And maybe possibly a few that have a side basket.
We have a front basket as well too. And we do, we have one right at the Kroger in the Brewery District. And we do see a lot of folks, it's the grocery bag in the basket, so.
Sorry. The operation of the bike itself, I don't remember, is it pedal brakes or hand brakes?
It's hand brakes
No
and
gear-
pedal brakes.
Okay, and no gear shifting, so somebody who rides a,
3 speeds.
oh, it is 3.
Internal.
Internal.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm. And what's really cool about the bikes that we work with is that, like, to work on them, you have to special order the tools from the supplier. So Joe Schmo can't go out and just take an Allen wrench and start taking all of our stuff apart and go to the scrap metal yard. Oh, that's something too. You guys are planning on it? Work with CPD. Work with your local police department. We were able to give them an entire inventory of our bikes, and they have it on some online database, so that if somebody does come to a scrapyard or tries to sell it, like it dings and blah blah blah. But guess what? We have had no bikes stolen at this point, and only one that looked like it might have had some damage from a crash, but we've actually had no crash reported.
Piggyback on that. With our trolley lines are made of copper, so we already have a long-standing relationship with the scrap metal yards. They know what our wire looks like exactly, and they'll know what our bike parts and things look like as well, just to avoid any of that. in the past, we've had people try to de-energize lines to take the coppers. It happens.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the Capital Bike Share used congestion mitigation air quality dollars, federal dollars for part of the project funding. Is that something that either MORPC sounds like they might be interested in or would entertain? I know that with
Well, the
regards
way
to
most attributable funding works, and CMAC, SDP, and TA all underneath that category. The state of Ohio, they're administered by all of the MPOs. AMATS is an MPO here, and a certain municipality or jurisdiction would actually have to apply for the funds, and then however their scoring criteria works is whether or not it would get funded or not.
maybe something that Columbus would be like open to apply for? Do you
Yeah,
think?
we applied for us, we have
Oh.
application this past June. It was very quick. 5 more minutes.
One question. What's the smallest bike share in
Ours, I think, actually, yeah. And the go big, in 22 will probably work very well for Dave. 22 is actually like from everything I've read and from what we tell everybody when we're out talking to folks. 22 is as small as you probably want to go. You don't want to go smaller than that otherwise. Oh, see, I only know the
Started really
Alta
small.
systems. San Antonio is B-cycle, so it's a different system.
There's opportunity to expand over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and when they did the original feasibility study for Columbus, they did say we could support a 45 station system, and it did expand up that High Street corridor of that. So it is a priority. Well, we're here if you need it. We can let everybody go, or people can keep
Just my
going.
last question. In your first, one of the first studies there, when you asked people how would they use the bikes, they said recreation. But yet the whole thing doesn't seem to apply to recreation at all. So how do you merge those two? If people wanted recreation, but they're not really getting it. I mean, we
I
have
know,
this
it's-
whole towpath out here. How do you have a bike share and not be able to have people go on that bike share and have to pay $3 every half hour? I mean, how would you?
Well,
Unless you extend it
if
to
you
an hour.
look at Indian, it really just depends on what the priority of the city is. Because if you look at Indianapolis, they just launched, and there are stations all over the cultural trail. And so they decided that being along the trail was a priority for them. And it's just really what that goal of the community is. And for the mayor and the city of Columbus, it was more important for them to have their residents and visitors view it as a commuter system versus that recreational system.
And if anyone wants copies of our feasibility study or procurement information, please let me know your email or contact information. We're happy to share any information with you.
Thanks, everybody.